Well, good morning, everyone. Little different setup today. We got this table thing going, not the pulpit. Pulpit's not a word we often use here in this church, but it is a thing, right? In some churches. But a lot has changed about churches over the years. We have a new pope of the Catholic Church, so there's that going on in the world. People's perception of church has changed over time too. Church used to be the center of the community, but not so much anymore. So it's not uncommon to hear people say now, why would I even go to church? Or what am I going to get out of church? Even oftentimes believers will say, I don't have to go to church in order to be a follower of Jesus. So why do you go to church? Why are you here today? The church building has also changed over time. The early church met in homes, simple homes, kind of like this one here. This is said to be Peter's home. This is the one where the four friends lowered their friend down through the roof. So that's Peter's home in Capernaum. And then in sometime around the 3rd or 4th century, then cathedrals showed up, and churches like this, and even bigger and these grand, elaborate buildings. And then came the Protestant movement, and churches like this started popping up all over. So the church building has changed. But church in the Bible never meant a building. It never meant a building. It always meant the people. So the Greek word ecclesia in the Bible, in the original biblical text, means gathering or assembly. And so in the book of Acts, it talks about the first church and what they did and how they lived and how they gathered. And so it teaches us a lot about what it means to be a follower of Christ. There's a lot that we can learn from followers of Christ about being a follower of Christ. So last weekend, Trentel had this great message, this great important message about digging into the Word and feeding our souls, moving from milk to solid food. And last week, it was confirmation weekend last weekend, and we experienced young people taking a step of faith. And hopefully that inspired us to also take a step of faith. So we turn to the book of Acts, chapter 2, starting at verse 42. And here's what it means to be a devoted follower of Jesus in this time. The believers devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching, to the community, to their shared meals, and to their prayers. A sense of awe came over everyone. God performed many wonders and signs through the apostles. All the believers were united and shared everything. They would sell pieces of property and possessions and distribute the proceeds to everyone who needed them. Now, in these verses, there are 4 church truths found in this passage. That the followers of Jesus were devoted to the teachings. They were devoted to prayer. They were devoted to a common life of those who believed. And they were devoted to shared meals or breaking bread together. And we can't separate those things. Those 4 things are part of who we are or who we should be as followers of Jesus. So here's a couple more verses of how this early church lived this out. Every day they met together in the temple and ate in their homes. They shared food with gladness and simplicity. They praised God and demonstrated God's goodness to everyone. The Lord added daily to the community those who were being saved. The early church was formed not just in worship through preaching and prayer at the temple, but around tables. Right? That's how followers were formed. And Luke, who wrote the book of Acts, uses this phrase that just stands out. They shared food with gladness and simplicity. In other translations, you'll find they shared food with glad and generous hearts. Joy and generosity and simplicity. These were the ingredients of their meals. And imagine if people would describe every single meal that happened in our homes as this: glad and generous. Wouldn't that be awesome if that's how people described the gatherings at your table, my table? So maybe this table is a better picture of what church looked like, what church was meant to be. Simple food, modest homes, but yet the impact was extraordinary. Lives were changed and transformed around tables. People were added to the community because they shared meals together. So we know that the church doesn't look the way it used to all the time. We've changed. We've kind of went a different path at times. We've become less centered in our community around church. We've become less generous in sharing. We've become more focused on ourselves and our own individual lives and our own individual families. We live alongside our neighbors, parallel to our neighbors, but yet sometimes we don't have those relationships. And that can be said for even us here in this room. You know, we live alongside, we walk in the same doors as our fellow churchgoers, but sometimes our paths don't ever cross. No connection sometimes happens when we come in and out of this building. But sharing meals, sharing life together was part of the early church. And it's not always easy. It's not always perfect. And true hospitality doesn't come from having it all put together. Doesn't mean that things are perfect, but rather true hospitality flows from our heart. So it's not about impressing others, it's about welcoming others. In Hebrews chapter 13, verse 2, it says, don't neglect to open up your homes to guests, because by doing this, some might have been hosts to angels without knowing it. And then, as I was reading it this morning, I was like, why didn't I include verse 1? Because verse 1 says, keep loving each other like family. Keep loving each other like family. Because when you open up your home, you never know who you might be entertaining. So this verse, this passage, this idea of sharing a meal together as your church family and opening up your homes means hospitality is sacred. Welcoming others is sacred. It's not just about politeness. It's about creating a space where heaven and earth combine. That's what we want when we talk about sharing a meal together. So today, we're going to hear from two people in our church who have recently experienced hospitality. And so I'm going to invite Hope and Sarah up to join me at this table. So welcome them. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to this table. Thank you for being here this morning with us. So You know what? I'm just going to start with this. So here's my mug I carry around most Sunday mornings. The staff got it for me a couple years ago. It says, "Be careful, or you will end up in my sermon." Is this true, Sarah? This is very true. So Sarah was sharing this story with me, and I was like, "Oh," and then the very next day, I think I contacted her and invited her to be a part. So Hope and Sarah, would you introduce yourselves? Tell us who you are, about your family, how long you've been at Horizons, maybe what you love about Horizons.
I'm Sarah Thomas, and we've been here for 3.5 years. My husband, Brian, leads the worship team, and we have 4 kids. What I love about Horizons is the community that is focused on serving our community here and abroad. And that's my favorite thing, I think, about Horizons.
Yeah, I love that.
My name's Hope, and my husband, Matt, and our kids, Everett and Isla, have been coming to Horizons for about 3 years. We kind of followed the Thomases over. They tested the waters for about 6 months or so, said, feels good, let's come on over. So the thing I love about Horizons is that it's not just what I call a sit and get. It's you sit, you take in the sermon, you think about how you can apply it out in the community, and you do a great job of that. I'm not one to stop a pastor after the sermon to say, wow, that was a great message, but I've done that a few times because it really resonates with me, and I'm very community-minded, and that is also what I love about Horizons.
Awesome, thanks. So a few months ago, Pastor Catherine from Connection Point came and shared with us, and she asked us to consider living out our vision of connecting with our neighbors to live God's love by connecting with a refugee family. And we now, Horizons now has 2 groups of people who are connected with 2 different refugee families, and your life group is one of those, part of those connections. So why did you, after Pastor Catherine came, what made you sign up to make this connection?
I think for me, I have always been really interested in learning about other people, other cultures, just different ways that people live. I think in today's political climate, it felt like a small thing that I could be a part of to try to help encourage and just support people who don't look like me and people who are from other countries. I feel like whatever we can do, no matter how big or small, can make a difference. And that would be one way that we could make a difference. It's really important to me that what we take from church, we apply out in the world. And I really want my kids to see that. And so no matter what messages are being said over social media or the news, I really feel strongly that people who come here from other countries are simply seeking the same thing we all are, just a better life. We want what's best for our kids. We want their safety, and we want to be able to provide for them. And so I think that was really what spoke to me. And it seemed like a fun and just a good way to do that. I feel like with the political climate as it is, refugees and immigrants are being dehumanized and criminalized and things that they shouldn't have to endure. And so if we could even have an impact on just one family here in Lincoln, that really spoke to me.
Awesome. So can you tell what it was like? So you shared a meal with your family. So when you, before you even walked through that door, what were you feeling when you got invited to share this meal?
Well, it started before we shared the meal. The first time Hope and I and Michaela and Catherine walked into Fareed and Malala's house. They welcomed us. They served us hot tea and fruit and nuts and snacks and just kept filling our teacup. And they'd never seen us before. We just walked in, 4 women, they didn't know us at all. And so the hospitality started then. And even at that meeting, their friends who translate for us every time we go, said, we want you guys to come to our house to eat. The very first time they met us, they extended that invitation. So later, we set a date and we went.
Yes.
And yeah, we were a little nervous, a little anxious, excitement, I was nervous about what my kids might say or do.
Yes.
But it was really exciting, and
Yeah.
we were apprehensive. I mean, you're going to be faced with something different that you don't expect.
Yes.
But they were so warm and kind.
Yeah.
It wasn't that anxiousness just went right away.
Yeah. So there were how many of you total who showed up for this meal?
Well, my family and Hope's family went to the meal.
Yes.
And then there were at least 10, maybe 12 of them
Okay. Yes. So that's a lot.
in a small
Because 6
apartment.
kids, right? 6 kids with you and yes, spouses. Though that's a lot.
And they had just welcomed a new baby into their home, the day before we got there or 2 days prior, and that didn't shake them at all. I think when I've hosted people, even just a family of 3 coming over, I overthink and overanalyze and want everything spotless, and a new baby, we were
Yes.
astounded.
Yes.
You know?
So tell us about the meal. So you go, you show up. What were moments that stood out to you? We do have a picture of the meal there up on the screen.
It was just, we walk in, immediately they start serving tea and the snacks again, the nuts, trying to tell us what everything is. We're trying to, ask, what fruit is this, dried fruits and things. And then they have cushions around the room, and that's what we're sitting on. No couches, no chairs. And so we sit there and we talk and they serve that. And then they rolled out this big vinyl, like a piece of upholstery right in the middle of the room, like you see, and started putting dishes on it. They had prepared a lot of food.
Wow.
For 20 plus people, and they had done it before we got there. They had prepared for us.
Yes. Yeah. Any moments of connection that stood out to you with the kids or you? Yeah.
I think for me, just, on the way over, I tried to prepare both of my children to just say, their home doesn't look like ours because we have furniture, and in their culture, we sit on the floor. I just didn't want them to, their natural curiosity to, come out and offend the family by any means. But I just said, and you guys are going to play with them, and you might not be able to communicate, but they're our friends, and we're going to have a good time. And they live right across the street from a park. And so, of course, whenever you're in a new environment, especially when you're a little one, you cling to mom or dad a little bit. But the further we got into our time together, the more relaxed I think everyone was. And then by the end, I took a picture. I don't know if you have it, but I took a picture of my daughter Isla with one of their little girls, like running up and down the stairs. Like that to me, like
Yes.
that's what
a
it's
moment.
about,
That's
right?
a moment.
Connection.
Yeah. Yeah. So Acts 2, we read that they shared meals with glad and generous hearts. So did you feel any of that joy and generosity? I mean, you've kind of shared a little bit already.
Did you see that spread?
Yeah, exactly.
So generous. Wow. And it just kept coming and coming and coming. And then once we were all full and about ready to fall over, they brought out a huge bowl of fruit. I mean, it was never ending, it seemed like.
Yeah.
Yeah, the joy they showed us and the generosity, just preparing that much food is extremely generous. But they were so welcoming and warm despite the language barrier. It was humbling.
Yeah,
Very
that's
humbling.
awesome. That's so cool. So, what do you hope to teach your children about following Jesus through this experience? Not just the meal, but of the whole experience of just connecting with another family.
I think just the power of community and just being inclusive. It's really easy to have that with your neighbors who live across the street or those that you go to school with, and those that you might play t-ball with. But when there are folks who don't look like you, who don't speak the language, they need to be brought in even more so, I feel. And so to me, that has been so important, and I'm so grateful for the opportunity to involve my family in that too.
Yeah, the same. We really want our children to see that people who look different than us and dress different than us we're called to love them. And it's not just God told me to do this, they're real people. And it's hard to look at things the same after you understand they're real people
Yeah.
who want the same things we want and who love their family like we do. So
Yeah.
we want to show our kids that.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, anything changed about how maybe the way you think about your own table at home, or who you will invite, or how you will want people to feel when you invite somebody to your table?
We talked a lot about this. Sarah and I were given the questions by Pastor Mandy, and we thought, well, we need to figure out what we're going to say once we get up there. So last week, we went on a walk and talked about all of this, and I think you hit the nail on the head by referring to that generous simplicity, right? We were sitting by each other listening
That's
to
it,
you.
that's
I was
it.
like, that's exactly what we talked about. Just this notion of you don't have to have it all together. You don't have to have a perfectly themed meal and placemats that match the napkins, that coordinate with the happy birthday banner. There's just such power in simply welcoming and being together, and it really has taken the pressure off of me to do that for anyone who walks in my house. You might see some dust bunnies in the corner, my apologies, but and then you kind of talked about how just welcoming, you referred to, I think, your sister-in-law saying something about being in a home.
Letting someone see your dirt. Like
Yeah.
and I
Raise
think-
your hand if you like that. Let someone see your dirt. Okay, we got one. Good.
I think we so often make it an event, and we want to lean more toward making it about the connection we can build with someone. And so that means we have to calm down on the inside. And okay, yeah, we didn't mop today, but come on in, like it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Sharing a meal together just takes the relationship deeper. And we found that with our life group. This is something our life group does regularly. And it's a different level than just chatting. When you share a meal together, you really take things deeper. And we want to continue that
Yeah.
with simplicity.
Yes.
And I also think, too, to speak about simplicity, in their homes, they had a table kind of shoved into the corner that they use just to store things on. And, it made me want to start doing some stretches, trying to get up after sitting crisscross for such a long time. And so I was kind of walking around, trying to work the kinks out a little bit. And one of the young girls, she's a senior, she's about to graduate actually, I said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I've just been sitting so long." She said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. Do you want a chair?" I'm like, no, it's fine. She said, "Well, we just always sit on the floor." And I said, "No, that's great. That's so good for you." But I think the lack of table, actually, ironically, really helped us connect. It just seemed more intimate to just
Yeah,
be
yeah.
sitting around the floor.
Do you want to?
together. Let's
Should we
just-
move
let's
this
just sit
over
down on the steps
next
here.
service? We'll do that.
But it just, I can't say enough about the experience and how changed I am because of it.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I didn't prepare you guys for this question, so so it's fine. So today we're talking a lot about the relationship, and that's so important, right? The most important thing that we are happening between, Horizons family and these families. But these families are also faced with some really big challenges that I know that you guys are going to be trying to walk alongside them with. So can you tell about some of the challenges that they are facing, and things that we can be praying for them for?
Our family has been in Lincoln for 3 months, and they worked with the military when we were in Afghanistan, and when we pulled out and the Taliban took over, they targeted those who worked with the U.S. military. So Fareed has had 2 brothers and 3 nephews killed. So when they brought them here for safety, but I'm sure there is still a lot of fear. And then they speak no English. So, just starting to learn a new language. Their daughter's going to kindergarten next year. And they're in a place that's totally foreign.
Yeah.
So, they have a lot of challenges.
Malia, the mom, she is actually pregnant too. So giving birth, even if it's your 3rd time, it can be unnerving and scary at times, but in a whole nother country, people taking care of you who don't speak your language, pray about that.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
For sure.
Awesome. Yeah. We'll definitely keep those things in mind as we're praying for them and your connection with them. So, if what do you have to say to somebody who's a little nervous? I would be nervous, right? Not speaking the language, that is a huge barrier to get by. What do you say to somebody who's thinking about, oh, I should make a connection, but I'm just uncertain about it?
Do it.
Yeah.
Do it scared. Make small steps. Once the fear really does dissipate, once you realize this is a person, it's just a person, it's just like me. And take a friend along who's maybe more brave. Our life group's doing it. It's all of us working together and accessing what we can from what we know of the community to help them. And so it's, in a community helping, it's easier.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of people who look different than us, but we share meals together.
Yeah.
And I think any time, I'm going to challenge you all with just thinking about a time that you have felt scared or uncertain, or you've just had a hard time, and not really having very many people to come alongside you and walk with you through that. It's really tough. And so if you just kind of set your own comfortability aside and just reach out and know that what you absorb here, you are carrying out and applying it to people who really, really need that support, who simply just want the same thing that we all do.
So sharing a meal together, sharing a simple meal together can change lives. Strangers can turn into friends. Relationships can deepen. Barriers can break down through simple meals. And as it said in Acts, God's goodness is demonstrated to everyone when we share meals together. And I truly believe that. I truly believe through simple acts of hospitality and sharing meals together that the Spirit is working. The Spirit is there. And maybe you're like, well, I'm not a theologian, I'm not a preacher, but if you can make a simple pot of spaghetti or put out paper plates on a tarp canvas like thing, you can be a part of God's mission for the church. Like that is God's mission for the church, that we share meals together. It can be simple. It doesn't have to be a fancy cathedral, or there doesn't have to be a pulpit, just a table, or not even a table, which is pretty amazing. The early church didn't grow with sermons, it grew with suppers. It grew around the table. And so your challenge this week is to share a meal with someone. And maybe that looks like inviting somebody from here that you don't know very well to have a meal together. Maybe that looks like next week we're having a picnic. So no service here, and we're going to meet at Tierra, and there's going to be a potluck picnic. Maybe you just challenge yourself to sit with somebody that you don't know at the picnic next week. Maybe you sign up for Table for 8. Trentel mentioned that. There's information on the backs of your seat. On that same piece of paper with the Table for 8, there's on the other side, there's questions that you can have around your own table with your own family, or maybe somebody that you invited to have a meal at your table. So thank you, Hope and Sarah, for sharing today and being here and sharing your experience, because it is a good challenge for us to step out of our comfort zone, because this is what God is calling us to do, to share meals together. Jesus changed lives at tables, and so can we. So can we. So when we open our tables, we might be opening up an opportunity for God to save, to share that grace with others. So thank you again for being a part. And
Well, thanks for the opportunity.
Yes.
Thanks for planting that seed.
Yes, absolutely. So let's pray. Gracious God, thank you so much for this gathering today, where we are able to gather together and to worship you. But God, we know that you have called us to do more than just worship you, because worship spills out into all parts of our lives. God, we know that you want us to feed our bodies with good, nourishing food. We know that you want us to feed our souls with your word and with your love, and we know that you want us to share meals together. And so we ask that you would open our tables, that you would open our hearts, that we may find love and grace and peace that you provide, that we can also share with others. So thank you, God, for this opportunity for us to be here together and to share it with others. I say this in Jesus' name, amen.